Welcome back to the KDPG Sunday edition. We've got some great guests with us today to talk about the role of the media and President Trump's role and his adversarial relationship with the media. Our guests are Maggie Patterson, professor of journalism at Duquesne University's McAnally College and Graduate School of Liberal Arts in the media department. She's also a longtime reporter and the author of three books. Joining us also is Professor Joseph Sabina Mystic, a professor at Duquesne University School of Law who's had experience in government as chief of staff to the late Mayor Sophie Maslow. And of course, Sally here, managing editor of the Post-Gazette. So we left off talking about the Jamal Khashoggi situation. He was a journalist for the Washington Post, but he was a Saudi Arabian with permanent residence in the United States. And the whole question of how the President of the United States essentially is preferring the prince, the ruler, the crown prince of Saudi Arabia over an American permanent resident, a journalist. Sally, you asked the question, and it's a really good one. I mean, this is troublesome, isn't it?
Yes, it's very troublesome. I mean, it's an absence of any moral commitment on the part of the White House or any support of human.
Joe?
I suspect it's more of a reaction out of personal interest than national interest. This is not what our country's ever stood for, and you know, it's shocking, actually, to hear this response now.
I mean, is it? I mean, I don't know whether we're going to make millions off the Saudis, and of course, everybody likes lower gas prices. But do we really yield to those economic interests in place of human rights in this country? Is that the American standard?
That's been suggested, but that's not the way it's supposed to be. I'll pay a few cents more per gallon. I think most Americans would, if we could stand for the rule of law, and we could stand for decency and civility, and especially stand up to the murder of a journalist like this.
Well, let me ask about social media and the role of social media. I mean, everybody in journalism these days has to tweet. I mean, I'm required to. I mean, everybody wants us, the bosses want us to tweet out our news stories or do Facebook Live and all that kind of stuff. Print does it. Broadcast does it.
We're digital too.
Yeah, right, digital, yes. And it's become very important, and obviously elected officials are doing it. President Trump has, I believe when I last looked, 54 million followers on Twitter. He uses social media. But do you think, Professor Patterson, that social media has caused reporters to do things that they might not otherwise have done in order to attract attention?
Oh, I think it absolutely has had that effect, and I think that there will be at some point a reckoning of what journalism is going to stand for and how that fits into a tweeting environment, because the difference between gossip and journalism is verification. And if you're tweeting, I'm not sure there's quite enough verification.
Well, I think that's exactly right. Exactly right. That we will get tweeted. There's all kinds of information that gets tweeted, and before we put it on TV, we better be darn sure that it's accurate, particularly if it affects political figures.
That's right. That's right. I once celebrated the advent of the internet as a device that would help us become better citizens, make it easier to be a good citizen, to become better informed. And it shows you how wise I am, because it's flipped. It's just the opposite. It makes it tougher now. There's so much information out there, we can't discern the truth from a lie. And that makes it more difficult to be a good citizen.
And it's very easy to conflate some of the information that we get on social media as fake, and therefore fake news, when stories that might make it in the Post-Gazette or on KDKA are really not fake. They've been, one hopes, properly vetted.
Yes, right. A Google News executive recently said that, recently asked, is the internet to the First Amendment what the AK-47 is to the Second Amendment? It's a danger, and can we get it under control without killing the spirit of the amendment of the freedom?
That's a very interesting analogy, and I'm going to steal it.
Go, it's yours. I stole it. I pass it on.
Is that the dirty little secret in journalism? Sally.
So with this president's propensity to, at all hours of the night, to his thoughts, administration thoughts, it would seem that the First Amendment coming from the press does feel less important to him, and he is better able to shape his message. Do you want to comment on
I think there's
what
no
that
doubt
means
that
for?
that's true. And I think that we as a country have to come to some kind of realization of what it means that we're now one of the least informed populations in the world. That's not a good thing. We're also the only country, developed country, that doesn't substantially underwrite public television. I think that we've paid a price for our complete reliance on the market in journalism, and that may not be able to last.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt that that you're right about our media literacy or our literacy in general, in part because it's my impression that folks tend to watch the TV stations, and I'm usually talking national media here, read the newspapers that cater to their individual political prejudices, their points of view. So if you're conservative, you're going to be reading the Wall Street Journal and watching Fox News. If you're a liberal, you're going to read the New York Times and watch MSNBC. I mean, that's kind of the way you look at this stuff.
Right.
And if that's the only thing you're doing, one side of the story.
Well, and the internet has greatly exacerbated that, because we know that people are using the internet in these silos. You think the internet people call it homophily. Birds of a feather tend to flock together.
Homophily?
Homophily.
I don't know that word.
I didn't know it either. But it's not the way, as Joe was indicating, it's not the way we anticipated the internet would work.
Are you concerned about this? Do you see that in your students, for example?
Yes, absolutely. It's like, there's an old saying, it's like making soup from the same bone over and over again. Pretty soon you just end up with water. There's nothing there.
Right.
And that's what happens if all you do is tap the sources that you know are going to tell you you're right. You know, it's better to be challenged, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And that's part of the role of the media, is to challenge.
That's exactly right. Yes.
And if we don't have access to elected officials, and by the way, we've focused a bit on President Trump, but he's not the only one, right, Sally?
Absolutely right.
I'm sure from your perspective.
Absolutely right. I mean, I think we can talk about the Pennsylvania legislature. Yes, for us just to focus on President Trump is just one aspect of a very larger kind of degradation or attempt at degrading. I don't know if you'd like to.
Well, you know, I was thinking about the president's propensity. Sophie's name was mentioned a couple times here. Now, the problem we had was that every now and then she'd be up all night listening to a talk show and she'd call in. And the following morning,
Without your knowledge.
Yeah, and the following morning, we often had problems we had to deal with, things we had to straighten out. And so I can only imagine what it's like to be working for the president as he makes public policy through tweets.
Right.
And you know, if you're trying to serve him as a member of government, a responsible member of government, it must be nearly impossible.
I wanted to follow up with what Sally said, because I feel this again as a working journalist. And as I said in the first segment, I'll repeat it again. We do have self-interest in this topic that we're talking about today. I have seen more candidates for public office or elected officials try to hem in the media, to create little spaces where they can go and then try to tell them, you can't go there. You can't get closer to the candidate, or you can't, you know, talk to people who are in the audience. And that really, really offends me. And I generally try my best to ignore it. I can understand the security of the President of the United States, and I understand why there may be some reasons for that. But there's no reason for a local congressman to keep me from getting right up as close as I want.
You got that right. Yes.
Am I right about that?
Absolutely.
Am I right about that?
Absolutely.
Well, we have less than 30 seconds here. So your advice to journalists who want to cover politicians, including the president?
Well, I think they have to do exactly what you just described, which is to trespass into that circle that that has been roped off and ask the questions. Journalism describes itself as a public trust. They have to represent the public.
Joe, will you defend me if I do that and they try to haul me away?
I'll get you out if it takes 20 years.
I don't want it to take 20 years. Thank you so much for being guests on the program. This has been a great topic, and we appreciate Sally as always. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Sally Stapleton and I will be back with some final thoughts when the KDPG Sunday edition continues in just a few moments. Stick with us.